The wind screamed outside my courthouse window, a blizzard's icy claws tearing at the glass, whispering of the horror to come. As Judge William Foster, I'd faced humanity's darkest murderers, traffickers, terrorists over 15 years on the federal bench. But nothing could have braced me for the evil lurking in my own neighborhood, a woman whose petty vendetta would push my newborn daughter to the edge of death in a snowstorm. My name is William Foster, and this is the story of a monster disguised as a neighbor and the love that fought to save our miracle baby. My wife, Sarah, and I had fought for years to start a family. At 38, Sarah endured 3 miscarriages and 2 failed IVF attempts before our daughter, Grace, arrived 6 weeks premature, a fragile 4 pounds, 2 ounces. In the NICU, her tiny fingers gripped mine, her innocent face unaware of the battles she'd already won. We spent 2 weeks by her side, celebrating every ounce gained, every breath steadied. Dr. Emily Tran, our beacon in pediatrics, warned that premature babies like Grace needed extra care, vulnerable to cold, infections, and respiratory struggles. When we brought her home to our colonial home in Oakwood Heights, a polished neighborhood with perfect lawns and top schools, we thought we'd found a safe haven. The nursery, painted with soft stars and a rocking chair, was ready for our miracle. We didn't know a nightmare lived next door. Eleanor Price, the 55-year-old HOA president, ruled Oakwood Heights like a dictator. Her gray hair in a severe bun, her eyes cold as frost, she lived in a brick mansion, its hedges a fortress. For 7 years, she enforced over 300 rules: grass height, mailbox colors, even window blinds with ruthless precision. Neighbors whispered she loathed families, especially those with children, seeing them as stains on her perfect community. She'd driven out 4 families in 2 years, the Morgans for their kids' skateboards, the Lopezes for their heritage despite citizenship, the Kims for their toddlers' laughter. Eleanor's rulebook rivaled my legal tomes, her cruelty unmatched. Trouble struck the day Grace came home. Sarah, still weak from a complicated C-section, carried our sleeping daughter, swaddled in a handmade blanket, when Eleanor materialized at our driveway, clipboard in hand. "I'm here to enforce noise ordinances for infants," she said, her voice cutting like the wind. Sarah, exhausted and in pain, gaped. "She's a newborn, barely 4 pounds." Eleanor's smile was venomous. "Rules apply to all, Mrs. Foster. Crying incurs $50 fines per incident." That night, Grace struggled to feed, crying as preemies often do. We paced, singing lullabies, desperate to comfort her. By dawn, a yellow fine notice was taped to our door: $50 for infant noise from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., with a photo proving Eleanor had stalked our home at night. For 2 weeks, Eleanor's harassment was relentless. She stood outside with a sound meter, logging Grace's every cry. She fined us for our stroller, for medical deliveries, for the nursery light glowing past 10 p.m. She rang our doorbell during naps, claiming to check for violations, and complained to the postal service that Grace's cries disturbed the mail carrier. Her worst act was a false CPS report, alleging neglect while ignoring Grace's prematurity. The visit crushed Sarah, already battling postpartum depression. Social worker Lisa Grant found no fault: our home was loving, our care meticulous, but the stress destroyed Sarah's milk supply, forcing us to buy costly formula. "She wants to break us," Sarah wept. "All we want is to love our baby." As a judge, I had to stay measured. I filed complaints with the HOA board, only to find them cowed by Eleanor's blackmail: dirt on arrests, affairs, debts. "She controls us," board member John Hayes admitted. "We want to help, but she'll ruin us." They suggested we leave if we couldn't comply. I was stuck in court for a terrorism case, unable to delay without legal fallout. Sarah, though frail, assured me she'd manage with grace. We had supplies, neighbors' numbers, a plan. But Eleanor had watched us like a vulture, noting my absences, Sarah's vulnerability. In her warped mind, the storm was her chance to erase our disruptive family. At 1:30 p.m., as snow thickened, Eleanor approached our house with a forged emergency removal order, citing obscure laws about health hazards and noise pollution. Sarah was in the nursery, soothing Grace, when the doorbell rang. Expecting a neighbor, she opened it to Eleanor, clipboard clutched. I'm executing an emergency order for your infant's disturbances, Eleanor declared, shoving past Sarah. You can't do this, Sarah cried. But Eleanor stormed to the nursery, where Grace slept in her bunny onesie. Sarah, weakened by surgery, tried to stop her, but Eleanor pushed her aside and lifted Grace, waking her with a frightened wail. She's premature. She'll die in this cold, Sarah pleaded as Eleanor carried Grace outside. But Eleanor was beyond reason, her hatred of fever. This wasn't about rules, it was about destroying what she envied, our family. At the driveway's end, as snow raged, Eleanor didn't place Grace in her SUV. In an act of pure evil, she laid our 3-week-old daughter on the frozen ground and drove off, leaving her to die in the blizzard. Sarah's scream echoed as she ran, slipping on ice, crawling to Grace. Our baby's lips were blue, her body trembling, breaths faint. Sarah scooped her up, stumbling back to the house, and called 911, sobbing. My baby's freezing. She's barely breathing. Paramedics arrived in 8 excruciating minutes, finding Grace in severe hypothermia, her temperature 89 degrees Fahrenheit, lethal for a preemie. At the hospital, Dr. Tran fought to save her, warning the next 24 hours were critical. Pneumonia struck, and Grace was ventilated, her tiny form lost amid machines. Sarah and I stayed by her, hearts shattered as monitors tracked her fragile life. Police arrested Eleanor that evening. Neighbor Mrs. Park's testimony and the Wilsons' security footage showed her entering our home, taking Grace, and abandoning her in the snow. I protected the community, Eleanor said coldly, sipping tea as she was cuffed. Sacrifices are necessary. Her words stunned Detective Maria Ruiz, who called it attempted murder. Grace fought 6 days in the NICU, battling pneumonia and cold stress. Her survival was miraculous, but the trauma scarred us. Sarah's guilt deepened her depression, blaming herself for opening the door. Neighbors rallied, exposing Eleanor's abuses, stealing medications, poisoning pets, targeting minorities. The HOA dissolved, lawsuits mounted. At trial, Eleanor showed no remorse, claiming she'd saved the community. The jury convicted her in 2 hours attempted murder, kidnapping, more. Judge Patricia Lane gave her 25 years to life, calling her a predator. Eleanor glared at us, unrepentant, as she was led away. Now, Grace is 8 months old, a joyful baby with no lasting damage. We've moved to Green Valley, where neighbors bring warmth and gifts. Sarah's therapy eases her trauma, and we've founded Grace's Light, aiding families against HOA abuse and preemie care. Each February 15th, we celebrate Grace's survival with laughter, defying Eleanor's evil. She rots in prison, her hatred defeated by our daughter's strength. Grace's giggles are our triumph, proof that love conquers even the darkest storms.